And this week we get to have Stacy Lowry come, and she's going to tell us some of her story about the joy of Christmas. So Stacy's coming now to share.
Thank you. Good morning, Grace Union family. So I have the privilege of talking this morning for a few minutes about joy. And when we think about joy, it can be kind of a very broad topic to talk about. So I've kind of narrowed it down this morning to a story I have of joy at Christmas through the eyes of a child. So when I was growing up, we always lived in Missouri. And my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, all my cousins, they always lived in Texas or somewhere down south. So we only got to see them maybe once a year, sometimes twice a year. So when I was about 11 or 12, my parents had this idea, hey, let's spend Christmas in Texas this year. Cool, okay, great. So my aunt and uncle on this side also decided to spend Christmas in Texas with my grandparents. So if you are from the South, you know that you don't have a grandma or a grandpa. You have a meemaw and a peepaw, okay? Anybody else have a meemaw and a peepaw or the equivalent, Southern equivalent? Yes, okay. So we loaded our car up with all of our luggage, piled the presents high in the back of the car, and we hit the road to go to meemaw and peepaw's house for Christmas. So my aunts and uncles also did the same thing. So my 3 cousins were also there, who we really didn't get to see very often. So this was really, really cool. So we finally get there a couple days before Christmas, and we get to Christmas Eve. So it's Christmas Eve night. So of course, we're kids. You're not going to go to bed, right? You have too much energy. So we find ourselves in the front room of meemaw and peepaw's house with me and my little brother and my 3 cousins. So we're in there and we're talking about like who has the biggest present under the Christmas tree and like what we really hope we get to open in the morning. And then my cousin April has this really great idea. So before we get there, I need to tell you about my cousin April. Okay, so April is the cousin that is a little ornery. Okay, she likes to push the boundaries. She loves to play pranks. Okay, that is her MO. She loves to get a laugh out of people. So April is the one who, at meemaw and peepaw's 50th wedding anniversary, started the food fight. Okay, that ended up with the special anniversary cake being destroyed before it ever got served to the people, okay? So this is my cousin April. So we're in this room on Christmas Eve, and April says, hey, I've got this great idea. And we're like, yes, what is it? So she says, how about we go in the living room and we hide all of the presents? And we're like, yes, that would be so cool to wake up Christmas morning and the grown-ups who've been asleep for like 16 hours already have like no idea where the presents are, right? Like that would be so fun. So we all tiptoe into the living room and we get there and realize, oh, we have a problem. So homes in Texas built in the 40s or 50s are ranch-style homes, and there is no open floor plan. So the living room is just this really teeny tiny box. And so we realize, oh, so we brought all of our presents, and you guys brought all of your presents, and we have the presents from meemaw and peepaw. There's no way we can hide all of these presents. There's like 6 hiding places in the room, okay? And there's this mountain of presents. So let's pivot. What if we just relocated all of the presents and just put them in funny places? Okay, great. So we all set off. So we grabbed some small presents and we hid them in Peepaw's cowboy boots, because every good Texan has cowboy boots. And we put some presents and like threw them on the couch. And then Meemaw had these little plant hooks in the ceiling in front of the window. So, we have to hang gift bags from those hooks. And then we even took down like the sacred Christmas angel topper on top of the tree. We hung her upside down and then put a gift bag on top of the tree. So we were like so impressed. Like we did this great job of relocating, putting these presents in funny places. And then my cousin April notices there's this one little box that's still under the Christmas tree, and it's kind of like out of place. So she picks it up, and wouldn't you know, it's addressed to her. Like, oh, what are the chances? But it doesn't say who it's from. So we all kind of gather around and look at it. We know that handwriting. That's Meemaw's handwriting. So April, again, full of great ideas, says, guys, I'm going to open this present tonight and see what it is. And then I'm going to seal it back up and put it back under the tree, and no one will know that I opened it. Yes. Okay, see, we kind of go along with what April says, right? Okay, so we take this little box into the front room. We all huddle around her. And so she slowly starts lifting the corners of the tape, making sure the paper doesn't rip, making sure the print doesn't lift off of the paper. So very slow and methodical. She finally gets the piece of tape loose on the end of this little box. She opens the paper and slides out this little box. And the room is like this. It's like so quiet. So she opens the lid of this box, and there's this round red tin inside of it. And it's got this picture of Santa on it with his little gift bag and his little Santa hat. And at the bottom, it says, a special gift just for you. We're like, wow, this is going to be great. So she pulls open the lid of this tin, and inside of this tin was the prettiest, most sparkliest, shiniest piece of black coal. And April's face just like loses all of the color. Her jaw drops to the ground. The other four of us are like rolling on the floor, like laughing uncontrollably, like the kind of laughter that like you cry and you snot a little bit and maybe you pee your pants and like you can't catch your breath and your sides hurt because you're laughing so hard, right? Because like what are the chances that like the one gift April opens is a piece of coal, like from Mima, okay? So we cannot stop laughing. Like we can't even hold it in. And like finally like you get quiet and you kind of control yourself and then someone makes a snarful noise and then you start laughing again, okay? Like that's the laughter that was going on. So April finally like kind of gets her wits together, like puts the lid back on the box and like throws it back in the paper and like barely puts the tape back down, gives it a little once over to make sure it looks okay, and then goes back in and throws it under the tree because she's a little perturbed, right? So I can't tell you the presents that I opened on Christmas morning. But what I can tell you is that Christmas Eve night was a night filled with joy. Of just cousins and kids hanging out, staying up as late as we could without a care in the world, laughing as hard as we could because the ornery cousin finally got a dose of her own medicine, right? And that is joy through the eyes of a child at Christmas.
Thank you so much. All right. Awesome story. The funny thing, the story was amazing. Even funnier is like David sometimes takes notes on sermons. And I saw you taking notes on that story, so I'm not sure what you plan to do following up on that. But anyway, thank you, Stacy. That was an incredible story. I love the joy of Christmas. We're continuing with this sermon series we've been doing called The Teacher, where we're just looking at the things that Jesus said, that he taught, and we're kind of learning from Jesus, which is like a really novel idea in a Christian church. But anyway, and so we're jumping in today, but I want to start with a real life story. How many of you guys have driven on Lindbergh on the month of December? Anybody? I mean, you've done like maybe on like a Friday or a Saturday. It's a super fun time. People are going slow. And so I remember many years ago, I was youth pastor at the church then, and I was driving down Lindbergh. I don't remember what I was doing, but I remember I was going the speed limit because that's what I do. And so I'm driving the speed limit on Lindbergh, and then all of a sudden this car just like flies up on my bumper. And they're like riding it, and it's like, and I'm not sure what inner dialogue is going on in the mind of the person behind me, like, but they're riding it close, and I'm like, oh, how about that? And you do like the normal, like, polite way to tell people to back up. You reach up and adjust your mirror, and that's like the nice way of saying back off. And so anyway, so I do that, and it persists. And it goes on for another like 15 seconds like that, and then it gets worse. Then they start flashing their lights at me, like where am I going to go? Like there's cars all around, and then they start flashing their headlights, they're honking the horn, and then I look in the mirror and I can see there's like hand signals and gestures, and I can see that they're shouting, and it's a funny moment to me because I'm like, what on earth? And it just happened that there was another car next to me. So there's only 2 lanes, and so this person is just stuck back there, and they're freaking out like I am just the dumbest stranger they've ever seen in their life. And then it happens. Then the car next to me speeds up enough and gets over, and it opens a spot. And so this person jerks out, and they zoom up next to me, and as they go by and they look, it's a woman from the church. It was so funny because, like, in normal life, when you would talk to her, she was like the quietest, most gentle person, but you get her behind the wheel. And so the next Sunday at church was super fun for me, and so she's like walking around and she's like, I'm never like that. I don't know what happened, And no lie, like 6 months later, the same thing happened on a different road, same person. But anyway, it was one of my favorite memories. I'm tempted to tell you her name just so you can go meet her. But anyway, she was so embarrassed when I ran into her at church. And it wasn't just her impatience that embarrassed her. It was the contrast between the relational posture that she felt she should have and what she actually had, right? And so it's like she wanted to be this like sweet, quiet, gentle person, but in reality, she was this whole other thing. And so I want to talk about relational posture. When I say relational posture, what I mean is relational posture is more than what you say or do, okay? It's the general disposition that your interactions with a particular person stem from. So it's your general way with a particular person. So even before you say a word, with a stranger, you have a certain kind of relational posture, don't you? Versus like someone that you really know well. So if you walk up and you encounter a stranger, you just have a certain body language even, right? Like your relational posture, it's about the way that you're feeling inside. It's about, your physical stance. Is there tension or ease in your body? It's your facial expressions. It's the amount of eye contact. How many know that like too much eye contact with a stranger is weird? It's like, whoa, so here's the problem that I want to address today as we get started, is that sometimes we don't know the posture that we should relate to people from. Like sometimes we're closed off when we should be open. And sometimes we're aloof when we should be engaging, right? Sometimes we're guarded when we should be approachable, and different relational postures make sense in different situations, don't they? And so, like, for example, raise your hand if you're in the room and you're single, right? Anybody still, like, you're single? No one's raising their hand. No one's single. Here we go. One proud person. All right. So if you go to a singles event, you're going to adopt a certain posture towards people, right? You're going to be flirty. You're going to like, hey, how you doing, right? I mean, so like whatever it is, like you've got a certain posture. That posture is great there. That same posture at a family reunion, that's weird, okay? And so you there's a certain postures in certain places work. And like certain types of relationships, they've been defined for us. Like we just know that there's a proper relational posture. Like, for example, a parent and a child, right? So there should be this relational posture of authority and respect for authority. How many of you guys, as parents, like you catch yourself saying, like, check your tone, right? For me, a famous one that I'm famous for saying in my house is like, fix your face, right? Like fix your face. That's the wrong relational posture in this moment, right? And so you're correcting the posture in that moment because it just doesn't match what's prescribed. And so there are situations where we know, but there are many situations where we don't know what our posture should be. How many of you guys have ever like been introduced to someone and they're like, here's your Aunt Matilda. And you're like, I did not know I had an Aunt Matilda, right? And so it's like everyone's being loving and hugging, and it's like, this is family, but you've never seen this person in your life, and really, you don't believe that you're related to them. And you're like, so do I shake hands? Do I knuckle bump Aunt Matilda? It's like, how do I handle this moment, right? Maybe you're out in public, and you see a person that you used to date, or that someone you know used to date. And you don't know, like, should I have my hand on the taser, or are we going to pretend like we like each other right now, right? And so you just don't know which posture you're supposed to have, because we have a few different basic relational postures. We have one for family, and then we have one for like family, right? And so there's like friends, and then there's like a different posture for people that we tenderly love. Like there's a very, you just kind of move towards them and interact with them differently. Then there's a posture that we have for people that maybe we're polite to them, but we don't like them, right? And so there's that kind of posture. There are people that we just avoid interacting with altogether, right? And there's that relational posture. It's like to see them and just turn away. And then there's people that we full on hate, that there's not even a politeness to, right? And there's that relational posture. And so in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus commands a certain relational posture that he calls enemy love. And not radar love, but enemy love. And so sorry, you guys are too young for that joke, but we talked a couple of weeks ago about God's plan to free us from combative retaliation. And we talked about retiring our inner Karens. If you missed it, you can go back and listen. But it was all about that scripture where Jesus talks about turning the other cheek and going the extra mile. And I really have heard a lot of feedback from people how challenging, but yet actually freeing and transformational that particular teaching from Jesus was for you. And today we're actually going to be just continuing that same thought. And so we don't really have a ton of time to read it, but I just want to let you know, like if you read, you can go home and read it, Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 48, and that's Jesus' whole thought on this subject. But in this thought, he creates a continuum. And so there's like 3 different markers on this continuum that Jesus creates. First, he talks about turning the other cheek, right? And so he talks about non-retaliation. And then this other marker on this continuum is that God is talking about godly relational posture. Enemy love, pray for your enemies that you may be children of your Father in heaven. And so there's this posture that we take as the second place in the continuum. And then on the other end of the continuum is undeserved kindness, which we'll talk about next week. But there's these 3 different checkpoints on this continuum where it's like you can kind of, they're all different actions, but they're all creating the same things. And so maybe the first step in our growth and development is just the absence of a bad reaction. So someone's wronging you and you're really trying hard, you're digging your nails in, like, I am not going to respond in kind. I'm not going to do back to them what they're doing to me. And that's one part of this enemy love continuum. And maybe you've kind of got that down and you're not reactionary. And so this next step in the continuum of this godly relational posture and really dealing with not just your actions, but your inner posture towards the person. And then even beyond that, it's like it's not just how you feel, but now it's actually producing positive, grace-filled actions towards people that you struggle to like. And so that's kind of where we've been a couple of weeks ago, where we are today, and then where we'll be next week. But Jesus, he's teaching this. And so we're going to look at his words in Matthew 5. We're going to read specifically 43 and 44 today. He says, "You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy." How many of you guys like, I would love to find that Bible verse? Show it to me. I would love it. And so you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. And so real quick, right off the bat, like where is this coming from? When Jesus cites this Jewish saying of love your neighbor and hate your enemy. So what this is coming from, it was actually a really common Jewish saying of that time, and it was a perversion of something God commanded in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 6. So in 23:6, God actually instructs them not to form any treaties with the sinful people left living in the promised land. So they'd moved in, they'd set up shop, and there's these different groups of people around them who are not part of them, but they live among them. And so his instruction was don't form any treaties with these people like Gibeonites, Moabites, Edomites. And so what God was actually telling them was to avoid strategic partnerships with these people who have completely different value systems and agendas. But they wanted to hate these people, so they found something in the Bible to justify it. It's lucky we don't have this problem anymore. People don't find Bible verses to justify things that they want to do. And so we'll move on from that. But that's what was happening there. And so just to be clear how that relates to us, these enemies that Jesus was calling to mind were neighbors in the land. They were different ethnic groups. They were different political groups, different religious groups. These were the people, many of them, who turned their back on the Israelites when they were exiting Egypt. They were leaving as refugees. And there were some of these people who were actually kind of like ancestral cousins, essentially. And they were coming and they needed to get to the promised land, but they couldn't cross the land. And they actually said, we're not going to stay. We're not going to steal anything. Can we cut across your land to get to where we're going? And these people said, no. You can't stop here. You can't come here. You can't even get water here. Hit the road, right? And so these are some of these people. And so they refuse safe passage to vulnerable people in the wilderness. They were also people who lied and tricked them into political treaties that they should not have entered. And so when Jesus calls us today to enemy love, I want to be clear, he is not talking about people who are trying to murder us. He's talking about people we live among. But maybe they've wronged us. Maybe it's people who have insulted us or even continue to insult us. It's people who maybe we've been there for them, and then when it was their turn to step up, they weren't there for us. It's people with different social and political groupings, people with wrong agendas. It's often people who are contending for a different picture of America than what we want. It's people with a different cultural understanding. Maybe they're even contending for different laws and different rights. And so just to be clear, these are the kinds of enemies that Jesus is talking about when he commands enemy love. And so just, again, to be super clear, because we kind of have problems with this, he is not saying that we have to agree with these people or that we need to sign on to their agenda. But he is saying something about our relational posture toward these people. Now, here's why I'm clarifying all this, because here's what we do mentally. We hear the command for enemy love, and we envision ISIS or mass murderers, don't we? We're like, well, listen, what am I supposed to go up and hug people who are shooting at me, Bob? Like, that's unworkable. That's ridiculous. It doesn't work in the real world. And so what we do is we carve out an exception for murderers, and then we use that exception to continue hating the people who annoy us. We use that exception to continue hating the people from wrong political ideologies, from just bad bosses and annoying neighbors. And so these are the more pedestrian level enemies that we actually have in our lives, but we carve out the exception for crazy people, and then we use it on these people. And so these daily life kinds of enemies are the people that Jesus was calling to mind when he commanded enemy love. And so, what I want to say is that the enemy love Jesus commands here. It's a decision of our will that imposes on our actions and feelings. And so, here's the challenge we have is we hear this word well, love your enemy. And we're like, okay, I'm going to try. I don't feel it yet. All right, I'm going to try hard. I'm going to pray, God. And we're thinking that he's talking about fond feelings. And so what we're going to do for the next few minutes is we're going to explore what is he actually commanding us to do. When he says love, what does that mean? Well, in the Greek-speaking mind of the New Testament, there were 4 different kinds of love. And just so you know, this kind of love that Jesus commands here is this word agape. All right? And so, but there's agape love, there's storge love, there's philia or filio, depending on who spells it, and then there's eros, okay? And so storge, philia, and eros are all highly conditional forms of love. They're powerful, they drive us to do things, but they're highly conditional. Storge, for example, is a family love. Right? It's a family type of love. And it's born out of a genetic bond. And that bond brings a very high level of commitment to people. Right? And so how many of you guys know that you would do things for your family that you would not do for other people that you also say that you love? Right? There is a higher commitment level there. Right? And so, but it's limited to those with whom the bond exists. It's very conditional on who you are, and that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about that. Let me be honest, I love you guys. But the truth is, what I would do for my children exceeds what I would do for most of you, right? Like I bought Christmas gifts for my children. I didn't buy one for you guys. Sorry, right? Let me just be honest. There's nothing under the tree for you, not even coal, right? And so, but that's the way it's supposed to be, isn't it? It would be impractical and impossible to impose storge love on a broader scale. You can't love everybody that way, right? And so philia love is a friendship love, and it's born out of similarity and compatibility. So philia or friendship is something that we bestow on certain people, right? There's just some people that you just like, right? Isn't there some people you have a natural way with? You're like, hey, I like this person. They like me. We get along. How many of you guys have ever been around someone that's not necessarily your friend, and you say something that would just kill if you're with your friends, and then they don't get it, and you're like, get away from me, man. You don't even, it's just, so there's just an easiness with some people. There's just this thing, and you mutually decide we're friends. We're friends. Now, here's the thing. You should be friendly with everybody, but there are certain people who are your friends, and you both decide this together. There's a mutuality to this bond, right? And the level of connection, and it's dependent, though, on this mutuality, this you getting each other. And so you can't be that with everybody. It just doesn't exist with some people. And then eros is a whole other kind of love, and this is actually born out of physical chemistry, biologically and emotionally driven. I don't know about you, but there was this one person years ago in college that I wanted to like. And we would try to date each other, and it would be we'd go out once or twice, and then we'd be on the phone, and we're both bored out of our minds. And we tried to date each other 3 or 4 times, and finally we realized, I don't think we actually like each other. But there's just not anything there, right? And so maybe there's someone before that people have tried to fix you up with someone, and you're like, they're a nice person, they're great, they brush their teeth regularly, their clothes match. All the things are there, but there's just nothing there. And you're like, and you can't make yourself create those feelings because they're just conditional. It exists with some people and not with everyone. And so these 3 forms of love are intense, and they'll do a lot, and they go far with people, but there's a specificity for who they apply to. Agape love, on the other hand, is something that's born completely of the will. It's a decision that we make about how we're going to posture ourselves towards someone. It's a commitment toward another person, and it's not dependent on a genetic connection. So when you tell people, I love my church, this is what you're talking about. Like it's not born on some kind of a genetic connection. You're not saying like I get butterflies in my stomach when I look at the people at church. Like it's not that kind of connection. You're talking about a decision of your will to commit yourself to the good of these people, right? And so now here's the interesting thing, like sometimes agape love can even encompass these other loves, right? And so you can be friends with someone and have a filial love, and you can be so endeared to that person that your commitment to them even extends beyond your similarities. And you're like, you know what? Like you might make me mad, but we're in this for life. We're ride or die, right? And your love for your spouse, at some point that eros even gives way to a commitment that's bigger than your feelings and your emotions. And you're like, look, we're in this period, right? And so agape love will, when it's done well, will encompass even and come alongside these other loves, but it is somewhat distinct. And so agape love is unconditionally given, right? It's not earned. It goes beyond how we feel about a person. How many of you guys have ever loved someone in a way, but it's like, and you really were not liking them at the moment? You're like, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, but I really don't like what you're doing at the moment. And so, but there's this love, there's this commitment that goes beyond how you feel, right? And it keeps going when it's offended or when it's wronged. It deals with its feelings and it works through them, but then it resolves and it keeps continuing with the person. This kind of love stems from a decision to commit ourselves to a certain relational posture with that individual, right? And again, just to be clear, it's not a commitment or a command to feel fondly, because you cannot produce that. You can't just do that. Like, ooh, I'm just going to start liking you now, right? Right, so there's this commitment of agape love that I'm just going to be here for you, and I'm going to, position myself favorably towards you regardless of what else happens. And so agape love for enemies is about deciding to have an open and a kind relational posture towards someone, regardless of how much they do or don't deserve it. Now here's just the reality. When you decide this with someone, your emotions and even your physical reactions, they're going to buck you on this decision. How many of you guys have ever experienced this? You decide, I'm going to love this person, and I'm going to dig in, and your emotions are like, oh, like even your physical reaction, like there's times where you kind of move towards someone and you have to like force your body, you're like, here we go, right? And so it's something that you may even accomplish for a moment, and then you walk away, and it's like all those things kind of come back, and you got to decide over and over again. It's kind of like my decision to drink less coffee. If you guys are, during the month of December, we did like some life challenges, and I didn't drink coffee for September. And I was like, I'm not going to drink coffee at all. And it was great. For me, like I slept better and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as September was over, I made up for lost time. Like I just started drinking so much coffee. And so then since October, I go through these stages where I'm like awake for 4 or 5 days and having delusions. And then I'm like, I'm going to drink less coffee. And so then like Tuesday, I drink a cup of coffee. And then Wednesday, I drink 5 cups of coffee. And so then on Thursday, I'm like, I'm going to drink less coffee again, right? And so that's kind of how you have to do it when you're talking about agape love of enemies. It's like it's a decision that you make for how you're going to posture yourself, and you're going to have to make it again and again and again. And the question or the thing that we got to talk about is like, how did Jesus describe this posture? Because now we've decided that we're going to do it. We know who it's towards, but what does it really mean? What does this posture really mean? So how did Jesus describe the posture that we're to take towards people that we struggle to like? Well, he says, agape your enemies. And then he says this, pray for those that persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. And so real quickly, he doesn't say, pray for them that they may be children of the Father in heaven. He says, pray for them that you may be children of your Father in heaven. So loving our enemies is more about our character than it is about the impact on circumstances. Because sometimes we let ourselves off the hook because we're like, I'm not going to try because it's not going to make a difference. Like they're dead set against me. It's not going to fix anything, so why should I worry about it? This instruction from Jesus has nothing to do with the circumstances. That's not what he's concerned about. He's concerned about us becoming children of our Father in heaven. It's about who we are. It's not about the impact on the circumstance, right? And so this is about who we become. Are we becoming children of God? Or through our actions and our postures, are we becoming children of this world? And so really quickly, this posture, it starts and it's reinforced in prayer. And so Jesus commands that we pray for enemies because interacting with them, and I think Dylan and I think they're back there. Dylan and Cody are going to help me with this if they're not close by. But this is all about this, because what happens as you interact with someone that you struggle to like, what happens? The distance between you actually becomes greater. How many of you guys have ever had a conversation with someone that you don't like? And that conversation reinforces why you don't like them. And it's like, it doesn't help. Like you're trying to fix it. You ever try to like force friendship with someone that you really don't like? And it's like here we go. We're just going to sit together and we're going to do this. And by the end, we're going to be friends. And by the end, you want to stab them, right? And it's like, and so that distance becomes greater. And so Jesus doesn't say, just throw yourself in that person's face. He says, pray for them, because what he's telling you is that through prayer, you can actually allow God to begin to reshape your feelings and your interactions rather than allowing this interaction with this person to shape. So if you have like a bad boss, you know that every time you interact with them, it reinforces those negative feelings and it just gets tougher and tougher. And if you're praying for them, and in fact, if you're praying for them more than you're interacting with them, there will end up being positive impact. And so I think Cody is going to come out here and help me with something, because Cody is a person that I struggle to like. He's going to stand right over here. You guys think he's nice, but sometimes I talk to Cody and he just says stuff to me like
you're shaped like a square?
He just told me I'm shaped like a square. And so that hurt me. It created a little bit of distance, right? And so I'm going to try to like keep talking to him, but then he's going to say something.
You got the weirdest jackets.
He doesn't like my jackets, right? And so he insults my jackets, and it's just pushing me further away.
I heard that Karen has to tie your shoes for you every morning.
Oh my goodness. I think that's a fat joke. He's calling me fat that I can't tie my own shoes.
Those are still coming.
Those are still... And so here's what happens. The longer I deal with Cody, the more distance there's created. And so here's why I need to listen to Jesus. I'm just going to kneel down and I'm going to begin to pray for him. Father, help me. Cody is so difficult and I just don't know what to say. And so I'm praying for him right now and I'm asking you to shape him. And so Jesus isn't very strong. There we go. That's good. Thanks, guys. We'll practice that more before next time. Thanks, Jesus. So I really thought that would work better than that. But here's the point is simple. You'll probably remember it better now. The more I prayed, the more God was able to move my heart closer to this person that I struggled with. The more I just try to interact with the person, the more our interactions move me further and further away. And so this really just comes down to like, I've got to pray for them more than I'm interacting with them. And so if this is like a person you have to see every day, guess what? You're going to have to pray for them a lot. If this is a person that you don't have regular contact with all the time, it's probably a less intense situation. But in that next sentence, and so that's the real strategy that Jesus gives us, right? It's not say this, don't say that. It's none of that. It's not the approach to the interaction. It all happens as we bow our knee and we pray and we just allow the heart of the Father to leak into our heart in prayer. But then in that next sentence, Jesus reminds us, he says like, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. And so it goes from prayer to reminding us of this family connection to God. And so what that means is if I'm dealing with it on this level now, like I am a son, you are a son or daughter of God. Our Father is in heaven. And there's this person that is alienated from the family of God. They're an alienated, estranged son or daughter. And so here's what happens is our heart as God's son or daughter should be to prayerfully seek the restoration of his other sons and daughters. And so as we approach people that we struggle to like, even just viewing them as estranged, alienated sons and daughters. This is a person who's no longer connected to the family of God right now. And so my interaction to them could somehow change that. So even if you have no desire in and of yourself to love that person or treat them well, if you truly love your Father in heaven, your heart will be moved by his great love for that individual, right? Like, I mean, you may not care about me, or you may not care about one of my kids, but it's like if you love me, you're going to have to learn how to love my kids, right? It's like, hey, we can't be friends if you're going to like, have issues. Like you got to work that stuff out. You got to figure it out because they're part of the family, right? And so we're in a, this person, they could be an estranged son or daughter of God, and what we have to recognize is what's the heart of the Father for them in this moment? Well, I know what it is. His heart aches for them. His heart longs for being reunited with them. I mean, think about the parable. If you've been in church ever, like probably the parable of the prodigal son. And this son leaves home and goes to the distant country and squanders family wealth and is living crazy with prostitutes and wild living, and he's distant from the father and he's alienated from the family. And then he finally comes to his senses, and as he comes home, his father has evidently been watching for him the whole time, waiting for him, because as he approaches on the horizon, the story goes that the father runs out to meet him. The second he meets him, the son's trying to, I've done this and I've done that. He's trying to make it right. And the father says, no, you're immediately back in the family. He puts the robe back on. He welcomes him. And so you see the heart of God toward alienated sons and daughters in that moment. Now, I want to be really clear, because sometimes we hear this stuff and we think, well, and we go too far the other direction. Like, well, there are limits to what it means to have an open-hearted posture. Like, it's an open heart, not necessarily an open front door. It's an open heart. That doesn't mean it's necessarily an open wallet to somebody, right? So when someone is still broken, when they're continuing in destructive patterns, you can't pull them close in that season of life, because they will burn themselves and you down with them. And so if you're thinking about this story of the prodigal son, the father's heart was open to his return, and he watched the horizon for him. And when he did return, he restored him back. But the father didn't go to the distant country and try to grab him there. He didn't go, hey, you know what? Like, I heard you ran out of money, so I'm here to pay for some extra prostitutes for you. You know, I don't want you to go without. He didn't say, hey, son, I just love you so much. You can just keep doing this stuff. Come home, bring the prostitutes with you. Just be at home with me. Right? He waited for the son to come home, but when he did, he received him. Right? And so we have to understand, like, we have to allow people to come home. Like, we can't force relationship on them. We can't force friendship on them. We can't force reconciliation if they're not willing to have it. And again, this is why Jesus tells us to pray, not to try to fix it ourselves. But as we pray, our posture should be one of desire. One we're hoping they come home. We're watching the horizon for them. And so the correct posture is displayed in the Father being excited that the Son is leaving the destruction of the distant land and coming home. And that posture was actually contrasted against the older son's reaction when that happened, right? So the father restores this younger son. The older brother was angry that the father received him back. Right? Because, this son had the wrong posture. And so the climax of this story is actually the father correcting the posture of the older brother. He's saying, listen, this brother of yours, it's like he was dead and now he's alive again. Like, we should be celebrating. We should be excited because he's been brought back to us. And so when we draw close to our Father in heaven, his heart for that individual, it will leak into us and it will change our posture. Now again, you can't control the other person. We can only control our part in the story, and that's why Jesus' instruction was to posture ourselves a certain way and pray. Because when we get into conversations with God about them, his loving view of them will slowly impact our view, and it will reset our posture. And this will suck so much of the negativity out of your heart and out of your life. Like, I know it sounds like extra hard and extra difficult. I'm going to go above and beyond. But the truth is, this stuff is free. Because the reality of bitterness is that bitterness tastes good in the mouth, but it sours in the stomach. And so in the moment that you're acting in bitterness, sometimes it feels like a relief. You're like, ha ha, I told them, and so we can do all that. But that living in our heart and living in our life, man, it becomes toxic, and it's a weight that you will carry in life. And so exchanging that posture for what Jesus describes is actually refreshing. And on top of that, when we get good at this, our lives become wildly transformational. God will use your agape love of enemies to actually restore his lost sons or daughters. Your unusual posture toward people who are on the other side of typical dividing lines will actually capture their attention and raise questions in them about the impact of Jesus on you and how it might impact them as well. And so this is what it all comes down to. This is how God loves us. His love for us empowers us to love like him. His love came to us while we were still on the wrong side of the line. His love for us comes to us even when we're enemies, when we're not interested in him at all. In Romans 5:10, it tells us that while we were still enemies of God, Jesus' sacrifice reconnected us to the Father. And so enemy love, as we're looking at Christmas and what's coming in just a couple of weeks, enemy love is actually the backstory of the incarnation itself. It's the backstory of Christmas. Love for enemies is what drove God to send his Son into the world. John 1, verse 11 says that he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. So his love at Christmas and sending his Son took us from being enemies to being children of God again. You see, sin created an adversarial relational posture between people and God. And the incarnation of Jesus changes that posture. It shows us that God is favorably inclined toward us. And so Christmas is actually God's invitation for humanity to re-enter the family of God. And so in this passage in Matthew 5, Jesus, where he's calling for enemy love, Jesus is simply inviting us to live, to more fully live who we are as children of God. Like we are his sons and his daughters. And we're invited to love the way that our Father loves. And so maybe some of you feel like an enemy of God. You feel like you're on the outside today. Well, the message of Christmas is simple. It's that God came near to you. And that opens the relational door now. And all you have to do is walk through it by putting your faith in Jesus. And for the rest of us, we'll probably spend the rest of our lives walking further and further through this door of enemy love. Like as we deepen our relationship with God, we're going to learn more and more and more on a deeper level what it looks like to love people that we struggle to love. Let me pray for you. Father, as we think about the fact that you went first, that you loved us in a way that we don't deserve, and that you closed the relational gap between humanity and yourself, I pray that this Christmas, that it would empower us to begin to love in a more supernatural way. God, I pray that through your Son Jesus, that you would model for us this enemy love, and that you would empower us to love more like you. And as we struggle with people, that we would hear your voice, and that we would begin to see these people differently through this posture of enemy love, that we would see estranged and alienated sons and daughters, and that our great love for you as our Father would empower us and push us to have a different kind of posture toward people. I pray that that would not only improve our own lives, that it would free us from the weight and the bitterness and the gross things that would otherwise live in our hearts, but even more than that, on top of that, that it would bring transformation everywhere we go. I give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.